All right, we are live and going live across social media here, and I am excited to be here with you. This is Kitty Shambliss of Loving Without Boundaries, and I am here with Coach B. We have another incredibly important topic to talk about here, which is about broken agreements and how do we move forward when that does happen. Before we get started, I just want to say hello, wherever you're seeing us. If you are looking for a sense of community, you can come join our free community on Facebook. If you do a search for Loving Without Boundaries, Healthy Open Relationships and Lifestyle Freedom. If you're already there, we just want to say thank you for being here and getting the support that you need. We're about 15,000 people strong now, which is amazing. And the other thing I want to say is the voting is in for the Women in Podcasting Awards. If you did cast a vote, I just want to give a heartfelt thank you for supporting women in podcasting. We are proud of the nomination. Sadly, we didn't win. If you want to learn, you can check that out and see who did win in the various categories. Either way, though, we want to honor you for celebrating women in podcasting and the voices there. So with that, I'm going to give the mic over to Coach B to get us started on today's topic.
Thank you, Kitty. Happy Tuesday, everyone. And indeed, this is another important topic to repeatedly pay attention to and keep the conversation open, is broken agreements and moving forward from broken agreements. Like, this is one of the most painful places to be in a relationship when agreements get broken. It's not just that it can erode trust and like a personal safety, but also it can undermine something that we believed that we can rely on, a framework or a guidance. So it can really be destabilizing. And I also want to give you a definition, because as with so many concepts, different definitions can be in circulation. So at Loving Without Boundaries, what we call agreements is, this is the best description that we have at the moment about all our needs that are in our conscious awareness. And it also encompasses the co-created set of strategies between two people in a way that make a relationship work in a way that it works. It may not be your ideal choice, what's in an agreement, but when you agree to something, ideally, it's something that, okay, it may not be my ideal choice, but I'm 100% in. I'm 100% enthusiastic on board with what I agree to. Now, unfortunately, there can be so many ways that can get in a way of creating balanced agreements that last the test of time. And also when agreements get broken, like how we move forward from that. So there are some blocks that can get in the way of us handling broken agreements in a constructive way. And one block, for example, is that we don't have an agreement in place about what we're going to do if the agreement doesn't work. So this can result in like a huge blow up and huge conflicts because we don't have that specific agreement. Or maybe the problem is that the agreement wasn't clearly defined, or maybe it was something that I hoped for, or it was an expectation from my part that you should have known, if you love me, you would have never done this. So it's really important to start understanding when an agreement gets broken, like what led, what specific steps, what specific circumstances led to agreement being broken. And what can also happen is we either blame 100% ourselves if something goes aside, or blame the other person, and neither of them are helpful places. Or a belief can get in the way, for example, the belief that there's something wrong with the relationship, or with me, or with you, or with the agreement if an agreement gets broken, and an agreement should last for a lifetime. Like expecting an agreement to last for a lifetime is similar to expecting taking a shower lasting for a lifetime, or washing the car. Like, I'd never have to do that again. It would be lovely. It would be absolutely amazing in many cases if we wouldn't have to go in all the trouble to revisit the agreement. Sometimes reality needs us to compassionately and with curiosity revisit the agreement. So very often it's simply one belief that stands in a way of moving forward for broken agreements, and that belief is that agreements should last, and there's this fear or rigidity around agreements versus being open that agreements can change anytime. Like, people evolve, people change, and it's a natural thing in any relationship, let it be non-monogamous or monogamous relationship, that people change, needs changed, and we need to revisit our agreements. But these were just a few blocks that I wanted to mention, and basically the blocks that can come up that get in a way of constructive resolutions can be dependent on circumstances, individuals, and basically the situation in itself. But there's definitely a few that I wanted to touch on here.
Thank you for that, B. And I really appreciate this topic because we get lots of questions about this from our cherished clients that we're actively working with. And we also get questions a lot when I'm talking to people on their breakthrough calls or in our free Facebook group. I see definitely things around this topic of agreements and broken agreements and the feeling of betrayal or upset that can come up from all of that. So really important topic. And just in terms of blocks to either creating agreements or having effective resolution around that, some people can have blocks just to creating them at all. And we actually work with somebody where there's a trigger around the word agreements. And so one thing that can be powerful is to think through, okay, so is it the word agreements? Like, what does the word agreement mean to this person versus what does the word agreement mean to this other individual who is in a relationship? And know that you're empowered to figure out what to call this. You know, you can call it an understanding that we have or whatever works for you. But one of the biggest challenges I've seen is when folks are just not willing or don't have the know-how or don't have a roadmap for how to craft agreements or understandings between two people. And without that, it could be a recipe for disaster because then we're expecting people to read our minds. We don't really know where the other person stands. We don't know what the expectations are, whether it's our expectations or we're not knowing what the other folks' expectations are. So it's just a potentially ripe for misunderstandings and miscommunication and just kind of talking like this or expecting our partner to read our minds. So that can be really important just to know that this is an important step. And if there's blocks to even sitting down and doing this with your partner, know that you can be creative about what you call these. And also it's work that you can be doing on your own. And then when you're ready, go to your partner and say, hey, this is something I've been working on. I've been getting more clarity around what are my own values, what are my needs, and then crafting agreements that I think could be helpful, but I need your input. So can we sit down and talk about this? Or when can we sit down and talk about this? And know that you can move through any fear or trepidation that comes up in having that discussion, and give yourself permission to feel the fear and call forth your own courage and your own bravery and broach the topic anyway. Because if you are going to be coloring outside of the lines of heteronormative monogamy, we already know it takes courage and it takes bravery. So this is just another step on that journey of practicing courage in your relationships. So know that within our community and other people that are on this similar journey, they understand the challenges that you're facing, and that can be really helpful to know that you're not alone. So that's why we do encourage you to watch these Facebook lives and streaming that we do, and also come join our community so that you don't feel so alone. So I'll go ahead and give the mic back over to you, B.
Thank you, Kitty. You highlighted so many important points, and I really love that you also spoke to that phenomenon that sometimes the word agreement can be triggering. So it's really awesome if we can become creative around, okay, let's call it a guidelines or framework or have an understanding. And I also want to underscore something very important that you mentioned, that creating and managing agreements is a skill set. there's no need to like feel really poorly about that, because we can so easily default to places of shame or guilt or embarrassment or powerlessness because we don't yet possess the skill set. But if you think back to your whole lifetime, like where in your life has anyone taught you how to create healthy, balanced agreements with other people in your life? I personally had no experience with this. So that's why it's one of the reasons that we keep bringing this topic to these Facebook lives, because we also want to highlight that the success many times in relationships, any type of relationships, boils down to building certain skill sets. Boundary settings is a skill set that is highly tied to agreements. Being aware of your needs and values requires a skill set as well, and it all can be changed. And unfortunately, until we're not ready, willing, or really afraid of changing those skill sets, really painful points can show up in our relationships. Like one thing that I also caught from your share, Kiri, is it can be problematic if we have no agreements. We have way too loose agreements because that can create insecurity as well. And that can be also a problematic point if our agreements are quite rigid and very fear-based, because that can create a frustration, resentment. And if we create agreements from places of fear because we don't want to lose the relationship, we wanna please the other person, then those agreements will be more difficult to keep, and there's gonna be like these underlying negative emotions that I'm feeling constrained, I'm feeling suppressed, I'm feeling that these compromises are just way too big. So when we don't have the skills, the empowering skills to create agreements, often we run the risk to creating agreements from a really fear-based place. And this is when agreements can break really, really easily.
Mhm. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all of that and looking through that lens of how we get onto a journey of doing this. So I really love this conversation and giving people hope that this is a process that you can go through, and also to release, like a lot of people I know can feel shame around like, oh, well, crap, I didn't know I even needed to have agreements, or I don't know how to go on this journey, and know that that's normal. I often say that we weren't taught how to be in a healthy monogamous relationship, let alone taught how to be in a healthy consensually non-monogamous relationship. So it's normal and it's natural to realize that you don't have the skills, you don't have a roadmap to know how to do this. But like B said, you can find a way to navigate through this, whether that, and we'll talk more about that at the end here, you can look for a mentor or a coach, but also know that there is a path through this so that you can move from fear and insecurity and shame or guilt into a much better place of hope, of optimism, of feeling confident in your skills. That's totally a thing that you are able to navigate through, and that's partly why we do these Facebook lives. And what I've also noticed is people can get really lost when agreements get broken. And so I love how you mentioned that earlier, that thinking that we write the agreements once is like taking a shower once and thinking you never have to take a shower again or wash your car again. So it's the same thing here with agreements. Know that the best way to navigate through that is to realize that they are a process. They really do need to be flexible and to evolve, so that way we can give ourselves grace and give our partners grace, because there are going to be mistakes that happen. There is going to be broken agreements, and I'm not trying to say throw accountability out the window. That's not what I'm saying at all. But to realize that as humans, we're flawed and we're going to make some mistakes sometimes. And there's lots of different ways to figure that out, whether that's looking at the agreement and somebody saying, yes, the agreement is sound, I just messed up and I need to make amends and apologize and create some repair. And here's how I'm going to do better, and I feel remorse, and being able to express that to show that repair. Or do we need to sit down and maybe reevaluate this agreement and renegotiate it because maybe needs have changed, maybe things have changed within that union with your partner, and that needs to be revisited. Maybe it wasn't specific enough, like B was implying, because if we write it and it's very vague, which you might do in the beginning because you just don't know what you don't know yet, but sometimes something might happen and it's not something you could have predicted. And from that place, you can craft an agreement and get more specific so that everyone is on the same page. And it can be really powerful to write it down so that you both are looking at something in black and white and make sure, like, hey, is this what you mean? Do we have the same understanding here? And get as specific as you can with your partner so that you're reducing any misunderstandings there. But know that this is an ongoing process, and it is normal that there could be damage to trust. But also we can learn how to heal those broken trusts, and that's things that we help people navigate as well. So I'll go ahead and give the mic back over to you, B.
I want to stack on what you just shared, Kitty. Repeat breaking of agreements came to mind while I listened to you, and what occurred to me is to give everyone a few self-reflecting questions. So when either you keep breaking agreements or you are on the receiving an agreement, you are on the receiving end of breaking agreements, a few questions that can help to get clarity about what's going on is coming from a place of compassion and curiosity, like, I wonder what's happening for me that I keep going back on my word. Like, what's happening in those moments? What changes? What's different in those moments when I have to show up and stick to my word and I'm unable to do that? And just dig deeper, like, I wonder why. I wonder why. Or if agreements feel unbalanced to me and I keep saying yes to them, another question to ask is, I wonder what has me saying yes repeatedly to agreements that don't feel good to me. Like, I wonder what might be the reason, what might be the underlying pattern here. Or if I'm on the receiving end of agreements repeatedly being broken, which I definitely experienced in friendships, for example, I ask myself that when I'm on the receiving end of this, I wonder what needs to happen from my side for the greater good of this relationship. I wonder what needs to change with my boundaries or my standards, because obviously this person is not able to keep this specific agreement. And that's their story, that's their thing to work on. No one has to be right or wrong here. It's just simply dealing with reality that this person is unable to keep this agreement. So I'm going to check in with myself and do a compassionate inquiry about my part. And in many cases, this question helped me, and I distanced myself from two friends. It didn't end our friendship. It's just simply I accepted where they're at, and I distanced myself to a degree that I felt that love still can flow between us. And also another question could be, what needs to happen to move forward? So it's very important to distinguish between what happened. Okay, the agreement was broken, it happened, it's painful, and we need to allow space for processing that and for the repair. And we also have to make the distinction between the past and the present and the future. So this thing happened, and what needs to happen so that we can move forward in a way that works. And what might be some of the skills that I need to lean into, or what might be some of the support that I need to get to move forward. Let it be therapy, a coach, reading a book, or whatever way I can support myself or my relationship to move forward to a better place.
Thank you for that. And I captured a lot of those in the chat on some of our social media platforms. So those were really great questions. And so know that there is a way forward if there has been broken trust, if there has been damage due to that, or from a lack of repair, or not knowing how to heal from that, or also a lack of understanding on how to craft agreements or understandings or guidelines or whatever feels good for you to call it, know that there is hope, and you can decide to work with a mentor or a coach. We'll talk about that in a minute. You can learn how to cultivate self-awareness in your own value system, in what your needs are that are really important to you, and in how you want to show up in your relationship. And you can also create agreements that work for you in your committed relationships. And there's going to be different spectrums of relationships. It might be a more casual relationship where maybe you need a smaller set of agreements to feel safe and healthy there. Like, for example, taking care of your sexual health by practicing safer sex practices. But in a more committed relationship, maybe with a nesting partner, somebody that you live with, you may need more robust agreements there. And you can also create regular check-ins and really lean into curiosity and really know that you can be doing self-reflection instead of what we call the blame game with your partners, but by really looking from a personal responsibility lens, like where is my work to do here? What are my most cherished values? What are my needs that are really important? And put those all on the table so that you can look at them together, so that you can, as Bea was saying earlier, have a mutual respect, mutual understanding, and hopefully a balance of power, and doing your best to come up with agreements and understandings that feel fair to all parties, so that you can enthusiastically, authentically, and willingly say yes without feeling any sort of pressure or coercion in that. So if anything we're saying is making sense to you, what I do invite you to do is to go to this link if you want to have a conversation, if seeing if working with a mentor or a coach is what would really help you and your partners in your situation, especially if there is healing that needs to be done, or you need to rebuild trust, or there has been damage in your relationship. Know that we are here to help. And it all starts with simply having a conversation. So if this is resonating with you, you can go to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. That will take you into my calendar. Just find a time there that works for you for us to have that conversation. Normally, it's about a 45-minute chat, and there'll be a brief intake form for you to fill out that just helps set us up for success on that call. To give me a little context about our conversation, we'll simply meet at that time. I'll get to know you and your situation a little bit better to see if I and our process could be the right journey for you to go on. And if it's either not the right time or we're not a fit to work together, you do have my word that I will let you know, and I will do everything I can to steer you in the best direction for you, so that you do get a lot of value and clarity from our time together on that call. So either way, it's a win-win-win, and you're also getting to have a conversation with a master certified coach. I love what I do. And Bea is also a certified coach on our team as well. Like we take this work seriously. We deeply care about your success and your results and your happiness and your ability to get from where you are now to where you want to be. And that also starts with deciding that you want to be the best version of you, that you do want to live your most authentic life, and that you can get a roadmap and somebody holding your hand, if that's helpful at this moment in time, to help you get to from point A to point B. So if that's you, feel free to go to that link to lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. And I look forward to talking to you. Is there anything, Bea, that you wanted to add before we start to sign off?
Yes, a few self-reflecting questions as
Sure.
per usual. So question one, what comes to mind when I think about broken agreements, whether in my relationships or in general? So this can help you asking this question to yourself, identify what specific triggers you have about if you hear that someone broke an agreement. It doesn't have to be your situation. Maybe you read about it, you read it here in the Facebook group, in the comments, like what came up for you, what beliefs, thoughts, emotions, body sensations, what images. So that's the start of the self-awareness. Question two is, how do I feel about the idea of agreements being flexible and open to change? This is like a self-check-in with yourself, like how comfortable are you with flexible agreements versus like more rigid agreements? question 3 is, how can I stay curious and open if an agreement doesn't go as planned, so I can understand what happened and move forward? Question 4, what is one thing I would be open to exploring or doing differently next time we create or revisit an agreement to further enhance understanding and collaboration?
I love that. Thank you for always coming prepared with those self-reflective questions, which are fantastic. So I deeply appreciate you, B, and this important topic that you brought up, and everyone here who is watching this. So know that we care about your success. We care about you living your best life, really living in bliss and getting more towards joy and that sense of abundance, and moving from any scarcity mindset into more of that abundance and more empowered state. So know that we are here for you. And again, if you are looking for community and you're not a part of our community now, you can come join us over on Facebook and do a search for Loving Without Boundaries, Healthy Open Relationships and Lifestyle Freedom. If you just do a search, even for the first few words, will come up. And there'll just be a very brief form for you to fill out. Just like, I think it's 3 questions to come join our community. And you'll also see some guidelines to remain a part of our community. So with that, I will just say happy Tuesday to you. We're excited to be here with this important topic, and we wish you well, and we hope to see you on our next Facebook Live. Take care for now.
Bye.